Alright, gentlemen, welcome to yet another exciting episode of I Can't Believe It's Not the 90s. Anyways, we gotta talk about Iran again, because things are popping off in Iran. As much as I wanted to avoid the subject and just but Iran, Israel, we had Israel bombing Iran, and that happens every year or so. And now we have America bombing Iran, and that was always in the card. But now Iran has started hitting back. They're hitting American bases in Qatar and Bahrain, and I think also in the United Arab Emirates. And these countries are now sort of feeling involved. Now we're going to see if they're going to involve themselves on the side of Israel and America in this conflict. Let's see what happens. And also, Iran is threatening to close the Strait of Hormuz. Now, the Strait of Hormuz is this narrow patch of sea between the Persian Gulf and the broader Indian Ocean. And it's where, by some estimates, 20% of all oil in the world flows, all crude oil. It's where Bahrain, Qatar, the United Arab Emirates, and Saudi Arabia, to a great degree, it's the waterway they use to export their oil for the most part and bring it into global markets. It's also what the Iranians use to export their oil. And so if Iran were to close the Strait of Hormuz with missiles, with mines, with its navy, with whatever, it would cause a dramatic spike in oil prices. And this is where we come in. By we, I mean Europe, the broader European family of nations, which at this point sadly no longer includes America. Americans voted to basically peel themselves off from Western civilization and the European family of nations. Did they know they were voting for that? I'm not sure, but it is what it is. It's what happened. And now Europe's energy situation is precarious. Now, it's not as bad as it was in the 80s and 90s. We're not 100% dependent on oil. We have some alternatives. We should have nuclear power, and we have some renewables. We should look into tidal energy. That's a big untapped source of energy, but we're going to talk about that some other time. This continent doesn't really produce much in the way of fossil fuels. We got fields in the United Kingdom and Norway. We have, the Romanians have some oil. Ukraine has some oil and natural gas, but there's a war on in Ukraine. We can't tap those reserves just now. More reason to arm Ukraine and help them beat the fuck out of the Russians so we can actually access those resources for Europe. Deny those resources to the enemy. But at some point, Europe is going to have to start thinking about the Middle East. And we're going to have to start thinking about the Middle East as it exists, independent of American interests there, and start thinking about European interests in the region. Now, part of this is already underway. The European Union and individual countries are working together with the new Syrian government to start repatriating Syrian refugees and migrants into Syria. Syria is going to need every hand on deck if it's going to rebuild, and the other is, of course, bring some energy infrastructure online in Syria to service the European markets. We're just going to buy shit from the Syrians. It's going to be good for them. It's going to be good for us. I've actually, one of the first videos on this channel was in the wake of the fall of the Assad regime and the rise of al-Jolani, that this is actually an opportunity for Europe to gain a foothold in the Middle East. And part of my broader vision of essentially the entire Mediterranean coming under European control, directly or indirectly. Well, we have a chance now to work with the new Syrian government. Now, that's a good development, but the Middle East is not just Mediterranean. You need a presence on the Mediterranean side, and you also need a presence on the Indian Ocean side. And European countries don't really have a lot of muscle, a lot of forces in the area. Of course, you have French and Italian Navy ships patrolling the Gulf of Aden and the Red Sea to protect shipping from the Houthi rebels or from Somalian pirates, back when Somalian pirates were a thing. But there is no permanent base. There is no place where European troops, European navies can base themselves and project power into the Middle East. And I think I got just the right piece of infrastructure, and that is the island of Socotra. And I'm sure it's pronounced differently in the local language. I apologize to the native Socotrans for that. But the island of Socotra is right now politically considered part of Yemen, right? But geographically speaking, it's actually much closer to Africa. It's closer to Somalia, right? It's right off the Horn of Africa, and sort of acts as a barrier island to the Gulf of Aden and the Red Sea with regard to the broader Indian Ocean. The Socotran people are, genetically speaking, a mix of Yemeni Arabs and Horn of Africa people, so Somalians, Eritreans, etc. And they speak a separate language. They don't speak Yemeni Arabic, they speak Socotran. It's their own language. They're not very numerous, but they're there. And the island of Socotra, as you may know, Yemen is right now in a civil war. The island of Socotra is under the control of some faction purporting to be the real Yemeni government, which is allied with the United Arab Emirates. And the security forces on that island are United Arab Emirates. This is of course the Gulf Arab state, which includes Abu Dhabi and Dubai. Now, what I propose here is for a combined force of European states, which is, due to the geography of the situation, probably going to include French, Italian, and Greek Navy forces, right? But this should have a participation of every European power, at least token participation, so that it can be common action to essentially wrest control of the island of Socotra from the United Arab Emirates and build a European naval and air base on this island. And this is important. This is important because you have Djibouti right over on the Horn of Africa. The Chinese and the Americans have bases there. You have a little bit further south in the Indian Ocean, you have Diego Garcia. This is a British island which has a combined British-American air base. And this is important because the British denied the use of Diego Garcia to the Americans for the purposes of the Iran strikes, forcing the Americans to fly the B-2 Spirit bombers from Guam. But European powers, we really have no presence in this region, and we need this base to project power into the Middle East, especially the Gulf of Aden, the Red Sea, and after a fashion, the Arabian Peninsula and the Persian Gulf. Right, the island of Socotra actually allows us to control traffic in and out of the Red Sea, right, and allows us to have a base from which to project power not only into the Arabian Peninsula but also into the Horn of Africa. Twice in my lifetime, the shipping routes through the Red Sea, through the Suez Canal, have been interdicted by guerrilla forces. Now, back 10, 15 years ago, it was Somalian pirates, right? Today, it's the Houthi rebels in continental Yemen. Europe needs a military presence there to control that vital sea route, right? We need to have ships, we need to have people, we need to have airplanes, and we need a staging ground for possible intervention into Yemen, Somalia, Eritrea, Djibouti, right? All of these places which are politically unstable. And if necessary, we politically stabilize them. Now you say, is this imperialism? No, we're going to go and stabilize Socotra in the name of the legitimate Yemeni government. We can pick some group which purports to control Yemen, purports to be the legitimate government of Yemen. Just pick them at random and say, okay, these guys are the legitimate government of Yemen. We're taking Socotra in their name. In exchange, we build an air base, we build a naval base, we build, a staging area for European interests, Now, of course, you're going to have to get the Egyptians on site because you have to go through Suez to do this. But the Egyptians are incredibly easy to get on site. Just give them money. they are delightfully cooperative and simple in that way. The Egyptian government cannot feed its population. It needs cash in order to buy food on the international markets. So they're very remarkably easy to control in this way. And if Europe gains goodwill with Egypt, that gives us an edge in the geopolitical game against American interests, because Egypt is the American ally, right? And America basically pays Egypt to not attack Israel. It also pays Jordan not to attack Israel. That should also get tacked on to that big bill of, how much money does America spend on Israel? All the foreign aid, which is essentially a bribe to Jordan and Egypt to just not go to war with Israel. Well, by building goodwill with Egypt, Europe can sort of check our American adversaries in this region as well, and it goes towards the broader goal of essentially European control of the entire Mediterranean coastline, just like the Romans did. We're going to be just like the Romans, folks. And those of you saying, okay, well, America shouldn't be the enemy of Europe and Europe shouldn't be the enemy of America, I agree with you. But this is not a discussion of should, this is a discussion of is. And as it happens, America chose, quite literally, in open elections, to be an enemy of Europe. And, well, that's the game we're going to play. Nobody likes to play it, but that's the game we're playing. Bye-bye, folks, and as always, think big, think outwards. Socotra is European.